Candy Ebling for filling in for me last night. It was a little under the weather, but she did a superior job filling in for me. But when I'm back, and I'm louder than ever. But meanwhile, this is the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. Wonder why? It's not Motor City Mouth, because I'm too loud for it to be any other way. Well, I've been looking forward to having this guest on a long, long time. His name is Dave Bradley. Dave, welcome to the big show.
Thank you very much, Scott. So happy to be here. Happy to be anywhere.
Well, let me tell you one thing about Mr. Bradley, folks. If you're a soccer fan, you definitely want to stay from start to finish. If you're not a soccer fan, stay anyways. You might find some other interesting twists and turns in this show, because we're going to talk about the guy that played for Manchester United. And you know one thing about Dave, I've been talking to him for a while. It's just a matter of fitting him in properly, and boy, did we ever fit him in. Just let everybody know that the Sports Exchange will be on at 9 o'clock Eastern time following our presentation of the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. I want to give everybody a little overview here. First of all, just want to let everybody know the Motor City Mad Mouth Show is being broadcast around the world, okay? That goes deeper than Mommy, Ohio, like England, Paris, all that stuff, okay? And then the audio version of the Motor City Mad Mouth Show can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for more subscribers. Let's get greedy and have more people hear us. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? Let's get that chat room active. And that's one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We do broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. I'll go over some more company information a little bit later. But meanwhile, Candy Ebling will be managing the chat, posting them up. And our first one here is from Will Vogel. And let's put it up there. I lived in London and Germany, and I grew up playing soccer with my brother. And my dad played Division II soccer in the USA. Great stuff, Will. And Will does appear every once in a while on Fire Up with Candy Ebling. With that said, Dave, let's talk a little bit about your soccer career. Give me a summary of how I know you had a pretty good career. So now you have a chance to talk about it.
Okay, so born and raised in Manchester, England, which is not dissimilar to Midwest / Toledo, Detroit. Working class, blue collar, very down to earth, hard working, grind it out, etc. Guts it out, be tough, be strong, get over your excuses. And I left high school when I was 16 years of age, because that's what you do over there, and went straight to Manchester United as a 16-year-old and was there for 4 years. And soccer taught me a lot of things, as we call it, football over there, but, we'll use the term soccer for relatability reasons here. Soccer taught me a lot of things, the usual things that sports can teach you, the discipline, the application, accountability, being a team player, all those things. But one thing it did teach me was you can get paid for living your dream.
Very good. Well,
and that came around a few years later at the end of my career to help me find something to continue to live my dream or chase more dreams after soccer had finished.
Well, we got a great comment in the chat room from Will Vogel. This guy, when he's on a roll, and I've never seen a guy do more research than this guy here. One of my young and up-and-coming prospects in broadcasting. Sorry, Mr. Bradley, I'm an Arsenal fan. But much respect to you and Manchester United. Such a great team with great history. Oh, the Arsenal. There you go. I'm sure you probably have a lot of respect for that rivalry, don't you?
And you know what? He's right. I mean, every dog has its day. Manchester United had their day, and they'll have another day. Actually, my best friend around here I spend a lot of time with, he's from Cambridge, England, but he's an Arsenal fan too. So, but Arsenal are going great. I wish you all the best, because it's not going to last forever. Man United will take over again.
Well done. All right, so let's talk about Manchester United a little bit here. You alluded to it, so now we're going to go, Dave, into more detail. You played there for 4 years for Manchester United, which I view as the New York Yankees of soccer. What was that like playing for Manchester United? You talk about a big name, recognizable worldwide. I mean, again, the New York Yankees and Manchester United, is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, it is. It is. it's always hard, but I think that's about as close as you can get in American sporting terms. What is it like joining, and arguably now, not so much the results, but just the size of the club, the history, the stature, the commercialism, arguably, still one of the top one or two teams in the world, basically. But our friend is right. The Arsenal fan is right now, they're not having the greatest of times, but, that does happen. But wow, joining a club like Manchester United as a 16-year-old, I look back now, I think about what did that do for me other than the obvious things. It gave me a real teaching and a grounding, and it helped to mold me into the person that I needed to become, not just to be a soccer player, but to hold myself and carry myself and carry the weight of being at a big soccer club and wearing the shirt of something, of a club that is so iconic. As a young person, you soon realize, wow, I'm part of something that's a whole lot bigger than me here, and you have to represent it well.
All right, so tell me about their stadium. How many people does that hold?
The stadium, as it holds at the moment, is 76,000 people, and that's jam-packed every game.
Okay, back to the chat room. Soccer is a great team sport that teaches you about building character and building relationships with others, boy.
There you go.
I'm sure you definitely agree with that thought.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's not only just helped me in soccer. I mean, my career ended a long time ago, but I carried those principles and those habits with me through my life, through business, relationships, etc., and it's really stood me well.
All right. Candy in the chat room says playing for the team you grew up with had to be special.
I don't think there's anything better than joining your boyhood team, because when I was a single-digit age kid, I used to walk to go see the games with my dad and my granddad.
Wow.
And now my son lives over there, so he's now fourth generation Man United soccer fan. So yeah, it really is. I mean, we don't want to be big-headed about things, but if the question is posed, it's a massive honor to play for your hometown team, and it happened to be Manchester United, the one that was my dad. By the way, my dad was there before I was as a young kid, just for a couple of years. So it was kind of passed down to me, and it's in the blood. You're born into it. It's in the blood. It's very strong. It's very powerful.
Well, the way you're describing this, to me, soccer reminds me of baseball as being passed from generation to generation, because we all know in the States, obviously, how many times have you seen players who have played, their grandfathers did, their kids have played, and I'm not going to get a list of names, but I'm drawing the similar comparisons here, Dave, with what you just mentioned.
Yeah. And, there's a statue right outside the ground, and there are 3 players that have got their own statue, and that's George Best, Bobby Charlton, and Dennis Law. I got Dennis Law's autograph. I wore his number 10 shirt at school as a kid. Bobby Charlton used to come and train with us after he retired, but I was there. He would still join in and play. George Best left before I got there, but I was a ball boy before I joined the club full time. So I used to get shoulder to shoulder with those legendary names as far as soccer is concerned. Yeah, I saw somebody make mention to that.
Well, Will Vogel seems to get the GMTA part alike, and great minds think alike, just in case you want to know what the acronym means. But yeah, you obviously did go ahead and play with George Best, who's on his Mount Rushmore, obviously. So, that's an incredible comparison. Back to the chat room, okay, with Will. You might as well call him the unofficial co-host of this show, because he's certainly doing a wonderful job. I watch Premier League every week. I like 10+ jerseys. All right, that's pretty interesting. Old Trafford gets a crowd every week, no matter how good the team is.
Yeah.
And on the field, Emirates, Stamford Bridge, and Hart Lane. Any thoughts about that?
He's 100% correct. the loyalty of the fan base, which creates a lot of commercialism success, even though they maybe not all as successful as they would like to be on the field right now, but the club itself is an absolute juggernaut. I mean, they're talking about selling Manchester United. Someone was going to buy it. There was all sorts of things going on recently, and they were talking about $4 billion or more to buy it. Wow. And a lot of those soccer grounds that were being mentioned there, White Hart Lane, I've been there. Arsenal, didn't get a chance to go there, but yeah, in my 14-year career, especially around the UK, I played a lot of those soccer grounds that are iconic, that have been around a long, long time. I mean, it's special. It's special. There's no doubt about that. Especially over there as well, because of the culture. It's a little bit different over here, but you're talking generations and generations and generations, and you're talking about soccer grounds there that have seen good times and bad times, right, with most of the clubs. But the good old-fashioned soccer stadiums are soccer purpose-built, and they create atmosphere. The crowd on top of you, everyone's screaming at you. It's intimidating, but that's a challenge, and that's what you play for that challenge.
Another kind word from Will Vogel will put that up before we move on here. Mr. Bradley, I'm so blessed to see you join Scott today. He's a mentor of mine. I love soccer. Scott runs a phenomenal YouTube channel with a variety of shows. So thanks, Will, for putting that out there. You're really a great guy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Too kind, way too kind.
Yeah, Dave and I have been good friends for a while. I just thought that this was a perfect opportunity to bring him on, and I'm so thankful that he was willing to join us tonight. All right, well, when we talk about iconic brands, okay, since you live in Maumee, Ohio, and for those individuals that don't know much about Maumee, Ohio, it's a suburb of Toledo, Ohio, right off of I-75. If that isn't good enough, the Toledo Mudhens play there too. So with that said, okay, when Manchester United played at the Big House, okay, Michigan Stadium, you said you watched it from the stands and it drew a big crowd. Explain that experience.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's my boyhood team, and I was a ball boy, and I was there for 4 years, and it taught me a lot. My dad was there. I mean, it's, if I slit my wrist right now, yeah, red blood would come out, but red Manchester United blood would come out. I mean, it's in my blood. I mean, it's my DNA. Would you believe my son still lives over there? And would you believe my now 22-year-old daughter is moving from here to go and live in Manchester, England, right by the stadium in July. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing. I don't know that I answered the question there. Could you repeat that, Scott?
Well, sure, absolutely. You're talking about an iconic venue. The Michigan Wolverines are the most iconic, the all-time Division I winning this team. Of course, it doesn't hurt they won a national championship this year either, and they have 107, 110,000 stadium, and I have amazing blue in my blood, even though I graduated from the University of South Florida, and I'm affiliated with others. So when you talk about Manchester United playing in an iconic venue at an iconic school, that had to send chills down your spine, knowing that Manchester United, the big M there, and the big M in Michigan to block them. That to me says a lot.
I mean, who would have thought that a few years ago that Manchester United would be playing literally 40 minutes down the road from where I live, and I would be joining 109 other thousand people just to watch a friendly game. It wasn't even a competitive game. That's the popularity. In fact, my brother-in-law, who's now a Man United fan, lives in Nashville, and he said, "Do you want to go to the game? Because I want to go and watch it." And I said, "Yeah, I'll go with you." So, yeah, that's how we ended up at the game.
Oh, very good. So, all right, let's go ahead and talk about Lionel Messi. It's impossible not to talk about this guy, and his impact in the United States. He's playing for Inter Miami. And would you say, is he worth the big money even late in his 30s?
The answer to that would be yes.
Okay.
For the simple reason is when you're playing at any level of sport and you're going to get and you're being paid for that, you have to produce, whether that's X amount, small amount of money, or X amount, big amount of money. In his case, it's a big amount of money. He's producing. And they're not going to pay him that money and go out of pocket, because they're given somehow through Apple TV and through other sponsors and getting creative. They found the money to pay him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come, because he could go anywhere and go and get that money.
Right.
I think if nothing else, Scott, it raises the profile of the game in MLS in the USA to a whole new level. And it needed to go to another level since Beckham first came in, who used to be at Manchester United also, long after me. But he came in and took the game to another level because he brought attention to it, and now Messi is taking it to the next level. Ironically, brought into Miami by David Beckham, who partly owns Inter Miami.
Back to the chat room. Okay. Will Vogel, I hope England gets a World Cup soon with all the phenomenal stadiums. Also, Mr. Bradley, a question. What are your thoughts on the future of English national team soccer? Oh, this is a great question.
You know what? It's such a timely question, because right now, for the first time, I would say they're in the best situation as far as the team is concerned, the world class players they have access to. The next World Cup is coming up in a couple of years' time, but coming up right now this year is what they call the European Championships, where it's not the World Cup, it's the European teams without the South Americans, etc. And that's a big competition. Some say it's even stronger competition than the World Cup.
Right.
Because the World Cup has got so many teams in it, and it's a big commercial engine, but they have teams in there that probably, it's exciting for them to be there, but then they play the top teams, they get beat by too many goals, and it's not competitive. So the European Championship is coming up, I believe, this year, 2024, in, I want to say June, maybe July. It's going to be over in Europe. So to answer that question, if England was ever going to win a major championship for the first time since 1996, they have the best chance right now with the team they have.
All right, back to Vogel. Well, this is an easy one. He said he's grinning from ear to ear. Well, you know what? Well, when you're asking the questions you ask, we're grinning from ear to ear that you know this much about the sport, which I think is a credit to the way a lot of things are done. Soccer, obviously, compared to American football, is a sport that, takes second fiddle here, but few people realize that the amount of youth participation in soccer is much better, and it's a much safer sport than American football. But we'll just talk about what Will's mentioning now. We'll get to that in a moment. Messi's putting on the MLS map. All right, go back to that again, Candy. That he's the best player in the world. My dad tells me stories when Pele came over to the New York Cosmos and the stadium sold out. You know what, Will? I can tell you that too, because I was old enough then. But Pele was unbelievable. And that's an outstanding comparison. This guy isn't just selling out, but teams are making a bundle of money off the ticket. I won't get into the overseas stuff about the friendlies he missed. That's not necessary for this particular show. But Messi's main responsibility is get ready for the MLS season. So why don't you address Will's question here in terms of how we're putting the MLS on the map?
Yeah, it's just sheer profile that is putting MLS on the map. I mean, he is arguably now, it's between Messi and Ronaldo is who's the best player in the world. And it was to and fro in between Messi and Ronaldo. Ronaldo was gone off the radar a bit because he's gone to Saudi Arabia, and that's not a competitive league, even less so than MLS. And now Messi has taken over the mantle for sure of being the most influential soccer player in the world right now. When you bring in that kind of player at that skill set level with the success that he's had and the consistency that he has brought to those performances over the years. That can only mean good things for MLS over here in the USA. Yeah,
Okay.
he's raised the profile 1,000%.
I've heard it on the streets, and I'm talking about when I get opinions from fans. Okay, Dave, and this is just fans and people that I follow on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network, as well as everything we do. That a lot of people have told me that the MLS is like a minor league soccer. Do you agree or disagree with that assessment?
I would have agreed with that assessment several years ago. I would say right now, in the UK, they have like a structured pyramid system. You got the Premier League, then you've got a league underneath that one, and then a third one and a fourth one, and even a fifth one and a sixth one. So in the pyramid system over there, a team in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever, and it's been done before. If they decide they want to grow and they want to try and get into the Premier League, they can do that, because over there they have a promotion and a relegation every season. So if you do really well in the league that you're in, you can be promoted to the next league that is more commercialism, there's more money, you can then get better players, etc., etc. But equally so, if you don't do well, you can drop out to a lower division, and that makes it very interesting, because you can't be a Cleveland Browns and end up bottom of the ladder for 5 years or more and stay in the NFL. In England, the bottom would drop out, and you'd have to climb your way back up. So it makes it really interesting and exciting. I understand in America why they maybe don't do that, because of the size of it, the travel that's involved, the time zones, the different weather. The UK is a whole lot smaller, easy to navigate around a whole lot more. But the promotion system, I do believe eventually MLS will have a promotion and a relegation aspect to the league. But I believe the MLS, the top teams and the bottom teams, there could be more parity than there is right now.
Right.
But we're in the world of commercialism. The more money you've got, the better players you can go and get, and that's going to determine where you end up. I would put MLS in UK terms somewhere in round about the mid-second tier / third tier in the UK, which is nothing to be embarrassed about.
Okay, we're going to shift for a moment to American football, and then we're going to end the show about the World Cup. Okay, 2 questions for American football. Number one, do you ever see the UK ever getting an NFL team? I know the Jacksonville Jaguars have played there a lot, and they're further ahead than most people. But this is a question that so many people ask me, and I don't think there's a better person on the planet to ask than you. That is it a matter of if? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Correct.
The NFL finally lands in the UK.
Yeah, you're right, Scott. It's a matter of when, because the world has become a smaller place, and we're definitely a more global. We're more global than we ever were sport-wise. I would say probably in somewhere around about 5 years, you might have a UK NFL team, and that will, in the beginning, consist of ex-NFL players that can't get into a big team over here. They've had a good career. They're a little bit on the downswing over here, but they can definitely lend their experience and their knowledge to some of the younger players who are UK people who want to play gridiron. Yeah.
Well, let's face the reality. We know the crowds are there, and obviously the
crowds are there.
Country has really received it well. And what few people probably don't know, but maybe you and I do, as well as the older generation, many years ago they had the World League of American Football out there, and if it wasn't so expensive to operate, I still think the World League of American Football would be in business because they were producing a lot of good players. And I know a fair amount of people that actually work there.
And you already have a stadium that's a relatively brand new stadium, arguably probably the best one in the world, that I think cost, well over $1 billion or maybe even more. But Tottenham Hotspur, the team over
Right.
there in North London, their stadium now, they built that so that they could host NFL games, and I've done that many times now. And they've got that system where they push a button somewhere and the soccer field kind of folds up and runs away on runners, and they bring out the NFL field and the post and they put it up, and there you go. You promote it, the people turn up, they're paying the money, the market is there, the market is getting ready for that. So, yeah, it's a matter of time.
Yeah, well, you have two stadiums like that in the United States, out in Vegas and Phoenix, where you can move the stadium in and out too based on light and all that. But yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about that stadium. So let me ask you then, if that's the case, could you ever see the United Kingdom ever hosting a Super Bowl?
Oh, you're talking about, there's a big culture over here of football and Super Bowl. I don't know that a Super Bowl would fly in the UK. Maybe not in my lifetime. Maybe at some point, but I think that's a way off.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, let's say it's reality. There's perception and there's reality. The perception would be a good idea. The question is it a reality? And when you get to our age, you wonder if it'll happen in our lifetime. Remember, you're talking about a guy who's been with the Detroit Lions a lot of years, and it's taken a lot of years before they got back to the NFC Championship game. And the last time that they ever won a championship, Dave, was on my birthday in 1957, 5 years before I was born. So there you go. So let's talk about all of that and put it in perspective there. But, I mean, I don't think anybody in the United States, when you talk about time, as well as taking away from an American city the amount of money lost. But I know that's a question that will be brought up as time goes on. And at least I don't leave any stones unturned, as you can tell in these particular shows. And you've been following a lot of my shows before you finally had we had the ability to put you on here. So, obviously Will Vogel brings up some points about Oliver, Andrew Luck's dad, being in the NFL Europe, which was true. And of course, obviously Will agrees with me that the Super Bowl needs to stay in the U.S., and he agrees that it's way off when it happens. So, so when we talk about that, so let's talk about why the United States has struggled in the World Cup. I mean, you would think that the MLS was brought in here, to try to bridge that gap a bit, but it just doesn't seem to happen.
I don't think the culture has caught up yet. I can see the USA. I don't know about winning the World Cup. That takes. I mean, let's switch it around, and you've got an NFL team that's in the UK. Could they ever come over here and do the opposite, like, to what you and I are talking about?
Right.
If that makes sense. I mean, I don't know how long is a piece of string. That's a hard one. That's a hard one to answer. I don't know.
Well, I think, why it's such a hard one to answer? Because they haven't solved this riddle for 50 to 70 years, and we're still trying to figure it out. So don't feel too bad. No matter how many coaches, managers, whatever you want to call these people, depending on the sport, they haven't solved that. Like a lot of teams haven't won the Super Bowl for many years. So, but again, it's one of those types of things where, but let's just think about it this way, okay? Let's talk about the women for a moment. The impact here of a women's World Cup championship is felt. Can you imagine if the men's team won a world championship? And I'll even take it a step further, okay? The men winning a World Cup championship was the equivalent to the Chicago Cubs winning a World Series in the Windy City, since it happened over 100 years before it happened. So I'm trying to draw parallel between the two. Yeah. And, we know Al Michaels will never be around when he called a Miracle on Ice, and I can only imagine what announcer will be around when this particular feat, should it ever happen, would do it. But it's always worth putting it out there, especially with an individual like yourself that knows English soccer better than anybody I know. I know a guy that I worked with for a period of time named Thomas Rongan, who's doing the announcing for Inter Miami and once upon a time Fort Lauderdale Strikers. Hopefully we'll talk to him at some point. But these are hypotheticals. And the one thing I want people to do here with the show is not only get to know you, Dave, okay, but I want them to think about soccer in ways that they never, ever would. And I think it's important that it's about thinking and entertaining and inspiring. And that's what we're trying to do. Let me also point out some other information. That our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, our Twitter/X information is at Tribune South. Candy Ebling behind the scene. I have a book out there that's written all over the screen here called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It talks about old school media versus new school media. It's available on Kindle and Amazon, and we're working on other sources to get there as well. But the thing that's important here is I want people, when they leave the show, to not only listen to it again, but think about the way this is such an unbelievable sport when it comes to growth. It's probably the biggest sport on the planet, but the biggest kept secret on the planet in the United States. And I feel a lot of that is attributed to the lack of success when on the biggest stage, and that being the World Cup.
Yeah, and you know what, Scott? You said something that I think kind of helps me help other people to understand now. Why do you have a USA women's soccer team that can win the World Cup multiple times over, but not the men?
Right.
I don't know what happened to create that, but the women created a machine, a mentality, an animalistic machine. They were tough, committed, they believed, they scared the living daylights out of the other teams because they were so physical, they were organized, but just the whole emotional development and the buy-in that they had, I don't believe the men's team have had. Therefore, it's affected their success. So if you're the men's team, look at the mentality of the women's team over, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I mean, they were cleaning up. And it's not, talent is never enough, Scott. You know that.
Right.
Not only do you have the talent, you got to have the application, and you've got to have the posture, the belief, and you can scare people before you even go out. I can remember wearing a Manchester United shirt with the Manchester United badge on, and we always used to say that was worth a gold star because it scared the living daylights out of the other teams. It was intimidating to them. And I think that's what the US women team created. They created a culture that intimidated other teams.
You know what that's called, Dave? They're in their head, psychology,
right?
My friend. Once you're in somebody's head, all of a sudden the mental part begins to wonder if the physical part will be on the same page. And when they're both not on the same page, it is called a developing dangerous situation. I'm going to put one more comment up from Will, and I'm going to hit you with the most important question that you will see in this entire broadcast. And for a lot of you folks that are watching on YouTube, everything that I've mentioned is still at the bottom of our ticker as well. So, my book is on there in the different places, as well as our relationship with some of our other affiliates as well. So we'll go, Candy, to Will and the friends part, and then I'm going to hit Dave with the toughest question that he's going to get hit with all day long. I'm trying to get my friends to watch soccer, but they're like, man, this is boring. Nothing exciting happens, and it's a low scoring. They are used to basketball and football. But you know what, Will? That wasn't always the case many years ago that they had indoor soccer, and that was actually pretty popular in the United States many years ago.
Yeah.
But it never caught on long term.
I have had the question many times since being here about soccer being boring. I kind of understand it in some way because when you're born and you grow up in America, see, soccer is a single goal game. You score a goal, you get one goal. It's not like football. You get a touchdown, and then you automatically get what, 6 points?
Right.
So I think sometimes in people's heads they go, well, soccer's a low-scoring game. Well, we only get one goal for scoring one goal. We don't get 6 points for one touchdown.
Right.
So I think you've got to compare apples with apples a little bit
Right.
There just needs to be a shift in the way we think. I mean, I had somebody close in my family a while ago said the same thing. Soccer is boring. And I thought, okay, so this is the way I'm seeing football. Number one, we call it football over here. And nobody
Right.
kicks the ball other than one guy who comes on 3 or 4 times in a game to kick the ball once.
Right.
But we call it football, but no one's using the feet. The next one is, correct me if I'm wrong, but statistically, NFL is only live play out of a 3-hour telecast of about 7 to 8 minutes of actual game time.
Right.
So if you're telling me that soccer is boring and we don't have commercials and it's basically non-stop, a 90-minute game is a minimum of 70 minutes full on non-stop. Yet football is 7 or 8 minutes. Now tell me, which one's the boring one?
Well, the only thing I'll say, it's pretty hard to argue against your logic, and I'm not even going to dare trying to do it. Although what I am going to dare to do is put Will's final comment up, and then I'm going to hit you with a hard question that you have to answer. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So before I go, I want to thank you, Scott and Mr. Bradley, for doing this very much. As you can tell, I enjoyed this very much, and y'all have a blessed night, and God bless. Well, Will, we appreciate you being on. So, all right, everybody's been waiting for the hardest question of the night, so I have to give it to you. Okay, finally, Dave, define your biggest success as a person.
Oh wow, that's so easy, Scott.
Well, I thought it was a hard question. Okay,
I know. And it probably was, but I like to simplify things. That's just the way I think, you know. If you'd have asked me this question when I was a soccer player, I would have said, hey, being a pro soccer player, the percentage of people that become a pro soccer player in the UK that make a good living out of the game is around about 0.1% of kids. So it's pretty competitive. When I came out of soccer, I retired out of it. I went to do a bit of coaching. I was in New Zealand. And eventually I thought, I don't want to be involved in soccer anymore. So I finished my playing career in New Zealand. So my career was good. You know, we're not talking on Messi level here by any stretch of the imagination, but it was good for me. And then the hard thing, back in those days, the money was great, but it wasn't life-changing money. Like you can play soccer now and then you can retire for the rest of your life as long as you don't waste all your money, which a lot of athletes do, right?
Right.
So then I became an entrepreneur and I used some of the skills that I had from soccer, the mindset, the attitude, you know, the ability to dream and think big and apply yourself. But I had to learn a set of new skills that weren't available to me in soccer. So I had to make that shift and learn a new set of skills to survive and do well in business, which I did. In fact, I'm thinking I was probably more successful in business than I was as a soccer player when I look back. Then I moved to America and I, by default, thought to myself, you know what? I've got 2 young girls now going the kindergarten and the early days of school. They were very young, single-digit age. And I thought, I want to be a full-time dad because I want to watch them growing up. What is the point in doing all this and not being there for the kids and not being involved in their life? So physically, mentally, emotionally, I was there for my girls every single day. So to answer the question, my biggest success in life, especially in today's world, was raising 2 girls in a crazy world and raising them successfully where they've become very confident, well-rounded, very well put together, very well emotionally developed girls, and they now live in Alabama. But my biggest success, and this is what I say to people, Scott, if you want to know what my biggest success was, the best thing to do is ask my wife and my kids because they'll tell you the truth.
Well, you know what? Really, I could summarize it in one word: fatherhood.
Correct.
You accomplished what you wanted on the field. You're well-rounded with what
Yeah.
you're doing anyways. But you
Yeah.
know what? The one thing you cared about is you took the ability to come to America and you developed your, people like you that take an interest in their kids. We don't see enough of these stories on social media, and which is attributes to a lot of the bad things that we see. So why do you think, I don't know, you ever heard of Vanessa Williams?
Yes.
Singer?
Yeah.
Well, I took a page out of her book when I asked you that question. You know what? One of my favorite songs was Save the Best for Last. So I decided to take this question and save the best for last. And that's why you got here with it now. My goodness. Only in America. I'm not Don King. Forget that. Leave it alone. But I want to tell you, fatherhood. And you know what? Not only you're a great father, but you're a good friend. And folks, just to let you know, Dave Bradley, this is the last time you've seen this guy. I'm planning to bring him back if he wants to come back. You want to come back in the future?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, the Motor City Madmouth and Dave Bradley on the Motor City Madmouth Show here tonight, Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. Anything you want to add before we close the show?
I just want people to know that life can be difficult sometimes, and right now, we're treading in waters right now that we've not navigated before. But however, what soccer did teach me is dreams do come true, and dreams can come true for anybody. You've just got to want it badly enough and be willing to pay the price and believe in yourself. Good things can happen.
There you go, folks. I give you a lot of reasons to rewatch this show. Number one, you probably learned a lot. Number two, I'm sure you're inspired. Number three, you're going to see this guy again anyways. It doesn't make any difference. Dave Bradley is everything I expected. I'm not being biased because he's a friend of mine. But the one thing I will say this, when I do bring on guests on these shows, as I screen them and I qualify them very carefully, they have to fit the mold of what I'm looking to do. Those individuals that have experienced a lot, whether it's success or failure, but their ability to communicate and convey a message. And I'll leave on this note, okay, for a lot of folks that wonder about my book, okay, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, Old School Media versus New School Media, available on Kindle and Amazon. The lessons that you take from that whole thing is when you look at a lot of people right here, is you can learn from people that you've met and that you haven't met. And that's the most one thing that you can learn. It's not only learning from your successes, but your failures. And I know Einstein failed a lot, but in the end, he was a success. And I believe that that's the one thing we're trying to make sure everybody understands here. And that's the whole purpose of this show. And that's why it's been a tremendous amount of fun to be able to talk to Dave. Also tonight at 9:00 Eastern time, the Sports Exchange with myself, JB Ellis, George Eichhorn, Jacob Christner, Candy Ebling will be obviously producing behind the scenes. But Dave, I got to tell you, it's been an absolute blessing. And I'm so thankful that we've been able to share some time tonight. And I hope that you spread the word of the show. Let them know that we're looking forward to bringing you on more times. And as evidence, you're always going to pick up fans, not only with what you did in Manchester United, but fans in life. And that's what this platform is all about. So meanwhile, this concludes this edition of the Motor City Madmouth Show. So on behalf of Dave Bradley, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth himself. Thank you for joining us on this show, and we will catch you the next time. The Sports Exchange is at 9:00 Eastern time. I loud, yeah. And again, I wasn't very loud yesterday, but you got to make up for it a little bit today because I'm only working on the first of two shows. Good evening, everybody. Catch you next time on the Motor City Madmouth Show. Good night now.